Leaving Alaska, I had a Ford that I'd bought for $500. And I had some extra tires and headlights. Because the Alcan Highway going south out of Alaska was dirt. And it was only a two-lane highway and was also traveled by truckers coming north. And it was a very dangerous highway. There was slick spots, and a lot of the times there was only a gas station once every 200 miles. So you had to fill up there before you kept going south. Once into Calgary, Canada, the road was paved and went down out of Calgary all the way through the United States into Florida. Once in Florida, I stopped at Port Charlotte, Florida. Flew a little bit of flight instructing around there, and then I saw an ad in the Miami paper for pilots for Rich International in Guyana. Rich International had C-46s and things like that at the Miami International Airport, and they flew the Bahama route and also contracted out to Guyana Airways. The operation was kind of scary in some ways because you were warned not to bring a woman into the office when you applied for the job because a woman owned the thing and didn't want to see any other women around there. But I applied and I got hired, took a check ride in a C-46 before ferrying this C-46 down to Guyana. Georgetown, Guyana was an interesting spot, particularly when on final you crossed over the burnt-out wreckage of another C-46 with the same tail number as what was the airplane I was in. This was kind of eerie. But versus rewriting the contract with Guyana Airways, they simply painted the same N number on the next airplane that went down there. And we were put up in a hotel in Guyana. That the situation in Guyana was a little strange because Lyndon Forbes Sampson Burnham, an Oxford-educated black man, ruled the country. And everything was nationalized, even the cigarette vendors on the street. And the hotel was also nationalized, but our rooms included food, which was okay, and that was all paid for by Guyana Airways, which we were contracted with, and began to fly out of Georgetown, Guyana. The C-46 was a little on the wobbly side, but I'd flown worse, so most of our routes were into Lethbridge, which was up near a tributary to the Amazon River. And this had been a cattle country area. It was rumored that John Chisholm created a cattle drive from Lethbridge into Georgetown. Now, there was a lot of little rivers they had to traverse, and crocodiles and those things devoured part of the herd. But he ended up with 2,000 cattle in Georgetown to be shipped out. And they called it a great success, but Chisholm decided he didn't want to do that again. But in Lethbridge, there was a little general store there run by an Englishman. And he had a great amount of memorabilia in there, including old six guns from that era, the huge black powder for the cartridge charge, and his stories, too, of his adventures in that area. This was okay, particularly the first trip was okay, because the runway was about 3,500 feet long, and we'd land in there early in the morning, and there was a slaughterhouse adjacent to the runway. And in this slaughterhouse, they'd slaughter cattle, and they'd walk up a plank with these raw beef sides and flop it down on the floor in the C-46. We'd end up with 12 to 13,000 pounds of raw beef steaming on the floor of this airplane with blood running out of the tail wheel doors, and strap it down and fly it into Georgetown. for the flies there to feast upon. And they'd load it into open bed, stake bed trucks and truck it in to town. And that would be your evening meal. I think they brushed the flies off it before they served it. But it was good beef. Now, the second trip was really itchy. It was also the buzzards' feeding ground because the entrails from the cattle that were slaughtered that morning were out in a common area for the buzzards to feast upon. And there would be clouds of those things flying around. And occasionally you'd hit one on final and make a dent in the leading edge of the wing. Never any through the windshield for some reason. But the second round was also the end of Georgetown, and now this temperature had gotten up to around 90 degrees. So you know the lifespan of the beef that you brought in was going to be relatively short-lived before it started to rot. And it went into town again on open stake bed trucks. And then occasionally in Georgetown, we'd get a trip up to the place where Jim Jones was going to have his operation. This was still in the building stages, but the Guyanans always thought that this was a great thing for the country, for him to bring all his people down there into Jonestown to live and establish a community there. Because he was rather lavish with his payment to the government. Little did they know that Kool-Aid was coming, and also a lot of notoriety from this event. Thank you.